Hey there, I'm Brittany Smith, and welcome to Filmmaker Symposium. So today we're going to be talking about scenes and beats, and this is part of a series called Story Structure. So if you didn't catch the last video, I definitely recommend you go back and watch it. We described what story structure is, and then we talked about story events. Now those topics are going to be really important to understand as we go through this episode because some of the concepts line up with one another. So first off, we need to talk about what a scene exactly is. And I think a lot of us kind of think of scenes and associate them with locations because we'll often say, oh, I liked the greenhouse scene. So we kind of associate with location, but actually that's not what a scene is. Obviously a scene includes a location. You can't have a scene without a location, but a scene is actually defined by the action that happens through conflict. So the action is the most important part of the scene. Now, this action should be producing a change in the condition of your character. So this change is usually positive to negative or negative to positive. It's never positive to positive and negative to negative. It has to be from opposite to opposite. Now, you might be hearing this and you're like, well, that sounds a lot like a story event. And you're right. There's actually a lot of overlap with story events and scenes. And essentially, the goal is to create a scene that is a story event. You don't really want to have a scene that's kind of outside your story events. It's not always possible, but that is the end goal. Now, a scene that is very boring and doesn't have change is going to be a scene that is totally and entirely description. So it might be just showing your character doing something in the field or playing with a bug or something like that. There might be a place for that if you have change in your scene. But if your scene is just description and it's just exposition about your character or the world around the character, then you need to scrap that scene because it has no momentum for the story. Because a story needs to have a constant momentum going, and the action within each scene is what keeps the motion going. So if you have a scene that is entirely description, just check it. You don't need it. And actually, I kind of wonder if this is where creating a scene comes from. You know, like if your friend is saying, don't create a scene in public. Well, there's something to that. Creating a scene is creating conflict. It's an action through conflict. So the definition of a scene for all of history has been that there is conflict and that there is change inside this conflict. So now I'm going to talk about what story beats are. So story beats are basically behaviors in a character that lead to the change within a scene. So I'm going to give you an example through Red Riding Hood once again. So I'm going to take that scene that I used from the previous video where the wolf approaches Red Riding Hood and they start discussing things and she gives away where she's going. So in this scene, my first beat would be the wolf approaches Red Riding Hood and says, well, my, what a lovely red coat you have. So that is the first beat. That is him throwing out his fishing line and he's starting to take action on this change that he wants to see. So the second beat would be Red Riding Hood responds and says, I am so sorry. I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. I'm supposed to stay on the path, but it was nice meeting you. So now the wolf has a complication. That's the second beat. So now he's trying to figure out how to get past this complication and get to his end goal. So the third beat would be, let's say he responds and says, well, my, what an obedient child you are. I can tell that you are very wise. So this third beat is meant to gain her trust and to solve this complication. Now, the Red Riding Hood, with the fourth beat, she responds with, well, what a friendly wolf you are. And then she starts walking away. Now, the wolf sees that now he's in a crisis because she kind of acknowledged his first try but didn't really follow through. And now she's walking away and he's going to lose his chance. So the fifth beat would be him saying, Well, I'm just making sure that little girls like you are safe. So I was wondering if you could tell me where you're going, just so I can make sure that you get to your destination all right. And let's say in the sixth beat, Red Riding Hood finally falls for it and she says, "Oh, well, that is so nice of you." She said, "Well, I'm actually on my way to grandmother's house. So thank you for your consideration." And now the wolf, he has his resolve. So we went through a series of little events within this scene. We had the inciting event where he threw out his fishing line, then we had the complication, and then we had the attempt to resolve the complication. Now we have the crisis and the resolve. So there's so much going on with within this scene, but it all happens within beats. So if you have beats like this in a scene, it's going to move that scene forward. If you don't have beats like this, it's going to be a weak scene and it's not going to create that momentum that you want in your story. Now you'll notice that these story beats actually work with the positive to negative change that we're looking for. So Red Riding Hood started out considerably safe, and now she's in danger because she gave away her destination. So we still have that positive to negative change, but that change happened in the context of story beats. So story beats work toward the mini change that's going on within your scene. And then if you have a whole bunch of scenes that are made like that, now you have a whole bunch of scenes that are working toward the end goal of your story, which creates momentum and interest from your audience. So story beats, as small as they are super important because they are the little motors that keep the scenes moving forward. So that's all I have for today, but next week we'll be talking about story sequences and story acts. So be sure to catch the next episode, subscribe, and like this video, and be sure to comment if you have any questions or if you have some other information that you can offer that will benefit other people. I really would love to hear from you. Now, some of these principles that I'm talking about, I've read from many different avenues, but one of my most favorite books is this book here. It's called Story by Robert McKee. He is excellent with just understanding the nuts and bolts of story and story technique. So if you want a copy of that, I'm putting the link below so that you can go ahead and pick one right up. But I hope you enjoyed today, and I hope to see you next time.